Speaker has selected Amendment C in the name of the Prime Minister. Would members who are leaving the chamber from the last debate please do so quickly and quietly?
Sorry.
I call Mr. Ian Blackford to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's a pleasure to move the motion in the name of the Right Honourable Leader for the Scottish National Party, the member for Murray, and many of my Right Honourable and Honourable colleagues. We have long argued that government needs to slow down the pace of the increase in women's pensionable age. We have argued that the increase in pensionable age is happening over too short a timescale. There has also been the argument as to whether women were given enough notice of the increase in their pensionable age. Indeed, there are those on the government benches, such as the Honourable Member for Gloucester, who has conceded that there were issues with communication. Madam Deputy Speaker, that was putting it mildly. Thanks to freedom of information requests, we learned 2 weeks ago that the Department of Work and Pensions only began writing to women born between April 1950 and April 1955 in April 2009 and did not complete the process until February 2012. I will make some progress and then I will give way. Writing to women to inform them about changes in legislation that goes back to the 1995 Act, but did not start the formal period of notification for 14 years. 14 years to begin informing women that the pension that they had paid in for was being deferred was quite something. Can we imagine the outcry if a private pension provider was behaving in such a way?
Exactly.
There would be outcry in this House and no doubt legal action.
Here.
When we consider that entitlement to a state pension is earned through national insurance contributions, where many women have contributed for more than 40 years, that was quite stunning.
Will my honourable friend give way?
I'll happily give way.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for giving way. Does he agree with me that these pension entitlements are not a privilege, not a benefit? They are a contract and they should be honoured?
My honourable friend makes a very important point. What we are talking about is women that have paid national insurance contributions, which was done on the basis that they would get a pension. This is not a benefit. It should be a contractual arrangement between the government and the women involved, and that's what the government have wilfully removed.
Grateful to the honourable gentleman. Given his strong view on this matter, could he tell us whether the Scottish Government has written to pensioners in Scotland about this, and whether the Scottish Government is going to use the many fiscal powers, the many tax-raising powers and the huge budget of £30 billion which it has in order to compensate women in Scotland?
Can I say to the honourable member that he might actually treat pensioners in Scotland and the rest of the UK with a little bit more respect and, quite frankly, that nonsense of a question. Absolutely. Just in case he doesn't know, pensions are a reserved matter. I would very much like it that the Scottish Government had responsibility for pensions. If you gave us access to the National Insurance Fund, let's be quite clear, we wouldn't be treating pensioners in such a shabby way that this Government is doing, and that's the reality. I will give way.
I thank the honourable member for giving way. Going back to the first part of his argument, what he was describing there is the absolute injustice that these women feel. I've met many from my own constituency, indeed many from across Wales, who also feel this is a terrible thing that must be righted. They expected something, they're not getting it, and we need to right that injustice.
I thank the honourable member for his point, and he's absolutely spot on. This is about justice, it's about fairness. It's about people that have paid into a pension and they expected to get that pension, in the case of most of these women, at age 60. And when you discover that they weren't given adequate notice, that's a very clear reason why the government today must change course and act in a responsible manner. I will give way one more time, then I'll make some...
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way. He's in many debates and there's no paid tribute to him for it. But the situation actually gets worse because the government through the back door is now examining the triple lock for existing pensioners, and more important, television licences for pensioners over 75 is now being shoved onto the BBC, who will get the blame and not the government.
Again, I find myself agreeing with the honourable member. And you know, as a House, we must reflect on the situation that there are still 1.2 million pensioners in this country living in poverty. And I'm ashamed when I hear members of this House saying that we should be examining the triple lock. Yes. We should be protecting our pensioners. And one thing I'll give an absolute commitment from the Scottish National Party is that if we had responsibility for pensions, that triple lock would be secured with the Scottish National Party. Pensioners are secured with the SNP. I'm going to make some progress, and then I'll take more interventions. I'm aware that many people want to speak. Government has changed the entitlement for something women have paid in for, with an expectation of retiring at 60. And when the goalposts are moved, the government can't get round to informing the women affected in a timely manner. Madam Deputy Speaker, a woman born on the 6th of April 1953, who under the previous legislation would have retired on the 6th of April 2013, would have received a letter from the Department of Work and Pensions in January 2012 with the bombshell that she would now be retiring on the 6th of July 2016. 3 years and 3 months later than she might have expected, but with only 15 months' notice. That's what this government has done to many women throughout the United Kingdom. 15 months' written notice for what you thought was a contract you had with the government has been ripped up. That's the contempt that this government has shown for 2.6 million WASPI women throughout the UK.
Would my friend?
I will give way.
I thank my friend. Would he agree that the attack on the WASPI women was because they were an easy target, and that is the first stage in a Conservative plan to downsize and dismantle the state pension altogether?
Well, my honourable friend may well be right. But of course, what this government is hoping is that through the passage of time, that this issue will go away. But it's not going to go away because the women are angry. And if you don't begin to recognise the need to do something, each and every member of this House is going to have the WASPI women coming to their surgeries and demanding action. And not just demanding action, running the risk that this government is taken to court. I'll give way one more time.
He's very generous in giving way. Is it still his policy to pay for changing this from the National Insurance surplus? Is that still his policy?
Well, I am going to come on and cover that point, but the fact remains that the National Insurance Fund, by the end of this decade, is going to be sitting at a surplus of close to £30 billion. £30 billion of contributions into the National Insurance Fund. The issue that the government can afford to do this is not in any question. The surplus is there. The National Insurance Fund, of course, has to retain 2 months' cash flow, but that can still be done by putting in place what we're asking the House to do today, the Landman report, which would push back the increase in women's pensionable age, make sure the women that are worst affected would get recompense and would get fairness. I happily give way.
I heard earlier that my honourable friend was referring to the fact that the WASPI women wouldn't go away. It's one of the most delightful things about them, because way back we carried a vote on a backbench motion in this House supporting them, not satisfied they'd already had a vote in Westminster Hall, not satisfied with that, they were holding meetings in every constituency, city and town in Britain. They're like the Grunwick women of 40 years ago, those little Gujarati women. They wouldn't give in. And the Tory government had better realise that the WASPI women ain't going to give in either. Yeah.
my honourable friend is absolutely correct, and he is right. The WASPI women are not for giving in, and those of us on this side of the House, and I hope some honourable members on the Conservative side, are not for giving in either, because I do want to make some progress, and I will let the honourable gentleman in later on. No reasonable notice was given, and yet so far no apology for this government as to how women have been treated. It is utterly shameful. It begs the question, how much notice should be given for changes to the state pension age? The Pensions Commission that reported in 2005 suggested that at least 15 years' notice should be given on any further increase in pensionable age. 15 years, not the 15 months that so many women have had. Will the government not recognise that appropriate notice has to be given and make changes? Madam Deputy Speaker, given the failure of the government to give proper notice, I put down a written question to the Secretary of State, which I received an answer to yesterday. My question was to ask the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions what his policy is on the minimum written notice to be given to people who will be affected by future changes to the state pension age. And the response I got was, the government has committed not to change the legislation relating to state pension age for those people who are within 10 years of reaching it. This provides these individuals with the certainty they need to plan for the future. We recognise the importance of ensuring people are aware of any changes in their state pension age, and we use a number of different means to do this. Anyone can find out their state pension age with an online calculator or the Check Your State Pension Statement service. Madam Deputy Speaker, according to the Minister who responded with his answer, the Government accepts that it should not change legislation for those within 10 years of pensionable age. All well and good, but what is the point of that when you do not inform those directly affected? In a response to a further question that I received a reply to yesterday, the Minister stated that following the Pensions Act 1995, state pension estimates issued to individuals on request made the changes clear. Madam Deputy Speaker, on request. It should not be done on request. You should not have to ask for the government to inform you of something that is this government's responsibility. It almost seems like a script from the comedy Yes Minister, rather than a government acting in a proper manner. I'll happily give way.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman who's been dogged in pursuing this with colleagues from all parties on this side of the House. But he mentioned Yes Minister here. He'll be as astonished as I was when, in 2011, I sat on these very benches with the Liberal Democrat Minister at the time pushing through the Pensions Act of 2011, and since he's left this House, he said that that Pension Act was wrong and it was unfair to women. Would you like to comment on that?
I'm grateful for that intervention, and he's absolutely correct that the previous Pension Minister has made these comments, and in fact similar comments have been made from the last Pensions Minister in the other place, Baroness Ros-Altman. Everyone can see the deficiencies in the government's policy. The only people that don't seem to get this are the government itself.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for giving way. I think it's helpful, if the former Pensions Minister is to be referred to, that the facts are put correctly. The fact is that the honourable member, the former Pensions Minister, said that the difference that was required was £30 billion. He went to the then Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Prime Minister and asked for £3 billion. And then when he was given a concession of £1.1 billion, he said, that's a hell of a lot of money. So let's be clear, the difference was £30 billion and he only asked for £3 billion, which is a tenth of what the honourable gentleman is arguing about.
I will make some progress, but let me just say this, that we're not talking about concessions. We're actually talking about pension entitlement for women that have been paid. How dare the government talk about concessions when people have actually paid in for a pension and they should be deserved to get it? This, Madam Deputy Speaker, is not a comedy. It's the reality of the government letting women down. I'll give way one more time, then I will.
There are suggestions from benches opposite that money doesn't grow on trees, and that's correct. But the money came from these women paying in through national insurance. It doesn't grow on trees. It came from their hard-earned pocket.
My honourable friend is quite correct, and we keep hearing that fiscal responsibility, that we can't afford to do this. But of course we can, because we already know that the surplus is there in the National Insurance Fund. Yet at the same time, when the new government, or the new Prime Minister came into office, the first thing that she did was bring a motion in front of this House asking us to renew the Trident missile system. And effectively, every single member of the government benches went through the lobby and gave the government a blank cheque. They can invest in weapons of mass destruction, but they're not prepared to give women pensioners their just deserts. I will take interventions later on, but I must make some progress. As I mentioned, this is not a comedy. It's the reality of a government letting women down. Failure to write to those affected is a failure of responsibility. It is an abrogation of responsibility. To pass the buck and to say that anyone can use the online calculator is frankly stunning. Madam Deputy Speaker, all prospective pensioners ought to be treated with respect. 2.6 million women were not effectively communicated with, and many are now struggling to cope financially with a later pensionable age than they had planned for. Let us look at what is currently taking place. I have highlighted the sharp increase in pensionable age that is currently taking place, but it needs to be gone over again, for the simple reason that the government so far has not got this, and it is going to need to do so. A woman born on the 6th of March 1953 retired on the 6th of March 2016, aged 63. A woman born a month later, on the 6th of April 1953, will have retired on the 6th of July, aged 63 and 3 months. A woman born on the 6th of May 1953 retired a few days ago, on the 6th of November, aged 63 and 6 months. A woman born on the 6th of June has to wait until the 6th of March 2017, when she will be aged 63 and 9 months. A woman born on the 6th of July 1953 will not get her pension until her 64th birthday in July 2017. You're beginning to get the picture here. For each month that passes, women's pensionable age is increasing by as much as 3 months. Just dwell on this. A 3-month addition to your pensionable age for each month that you were born later than your neighbour, your friend or your colleague. I spoke of a woman born in March 1953 who retired this year, aged 63. A woman born a year later, in March 1954, will not retire until September 2019, when she will be aged 65 and a half. Well, I mean, the honourable members opposite just seem to think this is funny. But we're actually talking about women that are being significantly disadvantaged over too sharp an increase in women's pensionable age. Now, they might find that acceptable, but I'm afraid that myself and my colleagues and many millions of others in the country certainly do not. A woman born 6 months later in September 1954 is going to have to wait until she is 66 in September 2020. Over an 18-month period, a woman's pensionable age will have increased by 3 years. As we keep saying, we're not against equalisation of the state pension age. It is
Never said otherwise.
Every speech that my colleagues and I have given in this House, we've made it absolutely crystal clear, as have the WASPI women, that we agree with equalisation. We agree with equalisation. It is the pace of change that the members opposite are burying their head in the sand and refusing to face the reality. I'll happily give way.
I have to echo the very clear position that my honourable friend has outlined, but does he agree with me that anybody who believes that purely because you're a woman and you happen to be born in a certain period of time, you should lose out is a very, very warped and strange definition of equality?
Absolutely. And of course, we have to face the gender inequality that has been with us, the fact that women have been paid less for so long, the fact that women have less access to occupational pension schemes, and the government opposite just seem to want to make things worse. As we keep saying, we're not against equalisation of the state pension age. It is the pace of change, and it is the issue as well as the lack of appropriate notice. I will give way one more time.
I was grateful to the honourable gentleman giving way. If Germany can introduce the equalisation of the pension age in 2009, why can't the United Kingdom? We're behind the game.
I'm absolutely dumbstruck. I don't know how many times we have to say it. We're not against equalisation. We support it. It's the pace of change from the government that's the problem. But while we're on the subject, the government might want to address the issue that the Polish Parliament met on the 16th of this month and has agreed to reverse the increases in pensionable age because they can see the unfairness. Maybe we should take a leap out of the Poles book rather than this one. I will wish to make some progress because I know that many people want to speak. Mr. Speaker, we should remind ourselves of what a pension is. It is deferred income. Women and men have paid national insurance in expectation of receiving a state pension. That's the deal, plain and simple. You pay in, you get your entitlement. You don't expect the government, without effective notice, to change the rules. What has been done to the WASPI women has undermined fairness and equity. The 2.6 million women affected by the increase in pensionable age had an entitlement to a pension and a right to be treated fairly. No more, no less. The government often states that the increase in pensionable age under the 2011 Act means no women will have to wait more than 18 months for their pensions. This is disingenuous, as it comes in addition to the changes from the 1995 Act that are still in the process of being implemented. It is a fact that women's pensionable age is increasing by 6 years over a very short period of time. That's the issue. That's the reality. It's the impact of both acts. The government has a duty to be truthful on this matter. Let me turn to the amendment from the government in the name of the Prime Minister, which is on the order paper. So much for the comments from the Prime Minister about supporting those just about managing. Many of the WASPI women are not managing, and to see this ill-conceived, patronising amendment from the government is quite frankly contemptible. Although the Chancellor confirmed the triple lock would stay for the current Parliament during last week's autumn statement, he has ordered a review into the cost of the guarantee and whether it is affordable. We in the SNP remain fully committed to the future of the triple lock to ensure dignity in retirement for all our pensioners. Any rollback by the UK Government will leave pensioners vulnerable. The Government's commitment to pensioners needs to be questioned. We already know that in reality, although the new headline flat rate state pension will be £159.55 a week, many people will get less if they contracted out a second or additional state pension top-ups over the years. With the Chancellor and others wavering on the future of the triple lock, only the Scottish National Party can be trusted to protect the rights of pensioners in Scotland. Well, you may laugh. I am glad to say that pensioners throughout the United Kingdom will be listening and they'll be watching the behaviour from the government. Frankly, Mr. Speaker, the amendment is something you might expect from a student debating society, but not from a government that is taking the plight of the WASPI women seriously. What is it going to take for the government to recognise that it has to do something to deal with the unfairness of the sharp increase in pensionable age? Mr. Speaker, over the last few weeks, 240 petitions relating to the WASPI campaign have been presented to Parliament from members across the House, showing that this is an issue that affects all parts of the UK. Parliament and the petitioners should be given more respect by the government. I hope when the Minister responds to this debate, he will withdraw the government amendment. This issue is not going to go away. The WASPI, I will give way in a little while. The WASPI women are angry and will be lobbying MPs in the weeks and months ahead. The government must act. This is not the first time that women have had to campaign to defend their rights. In this House, we frequently pay homage to the suffragette movement who campaigned for voting rights for women. There are similarities between the suffragettes and the WASPI women. The suffragettes were known by the acronym WSPU, WISPU. the Women's Social and Political Union, of course, were well known for wearing the colour purple, as do the WASPI women. The government of the day, of course, stood steadfast against the demands of the suffragettes for many years, before eventually they were forced into doing the right thing. My message to this government is not to be so pig-headed as previous governments against a campaign that, as the member for Bolsover said, is not going to go away. Show compassion. Show you can do the right thing.
On that note, does the honourable member share my bafflement about the fact that, in the face of evidence, in the face of campaigning, in the face of the many women coming through the doors at our surgeries to raise this issue, that the government has not yet changed its mind? This is not about equalisation. This is about a campaign against these women.
My honourable friend is quite correct, and the government ought to reflect on all the petitions that have been lodged. In good faith, lodged by members on the other side of the House as well, and they should listen to that. I'll happily give way to.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very grateful indeed to the honourable member for allowing me to intervene on him. In his many debates, he will understand that, in fact, also in Northern Ireland, thousands of women are negatively impacted by this change. I am one of them. I am one of them. But I will have a pension from this House. Thousands and thousands of women will not enjoy that privileged status. And on the 13th of July of this year, a new Prime Minister walked into Number 10 and gave an opportunity for this government to set a different tone, and this is a golden opportunity for the Prime Minister to deliver on the hopes and expectations that she revealed on the steps of Number 10.
My honourable friend makes a very strong point, and I really would appeal to the government that please listen to what has been said by members across the House, which has actually been said by some of your own members. You could do the right thing today. You could deliver justice for the WASPI women. Now is the chance to show that you really do care about those women that have been left behind. Mr. Speaker, while it's simply shocking that we're still debating this issue without resolution, should we be surprised? Historically, women have suffered decades of gender inequality, and while the Tories tell us that this is about equalisation and fairness, they continue to push women further into hardship by delaying their pensions and ensuring that their austerity cuts continue to fall firmly on their shoulders.
On that particular point, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank the member for giving way. But would he wish, like me, to commend the civility and the decent way and the reasonable way in which the WASPI women have campaigned on this issue? And we've met them all in our constituencies. But could he recognise, in the point that he's just making here, that women already have a gender pay gap and a resulting pension gap even before this comes to them? So this is compounding an already unfair situation. And would he agree with me that the failure to introduce better transitional arrangements exacerbates the already existing inequality even before we get to this point?
I fully agree with the honourable gentleman, and I would absolutely commend the dignity and the way that the WASPI women have gone about their campaign. They've been an inspiration to us. I will have to make progress because I'm aware that many other people want to speak. I've been generous with. We also need to recognise to remind the government that the House has already backed a motion calling on the government to take action that was passed on the 7th of January this year. Perhaps it's worth reflecting on what the motion stated. It called upon the government to immediately introduce transitional arrangements for those women negatively affected by that equalisation. Why has the government ignored the will of this House? Does parliamentary democracy mean anything, or can it simply be ignored by a government that chooses to disrespect not only this House, but the 2.6 million WASPI women? It is an affront to democracy that, despite this House voting for the government to take action to alleviate the injustice facing women affected by the acceleration of the increase in state pension age, the Tories are intent on resisting the will of the people. It is abundantly clear that we have won the argument on the WASPI issue. As well as winning the vote unanimously in Parliament for the UK Government to introduce traditional arrangements for the WASPI women, the Tories continue to shrug their shoulders at the will of the House. In various debates on this issue, we have won the argument, and it's clear that with the support of members on both benches, that the UK Government must realise that we will not be abandoning the WASPI women as they have done. All the constituents we represent, and thus should be given more respect and consideration from the UK Government. There will come a time when not only the Fairness! I mean, for sheer treat, for one last time, and then I really must make...
I thank the honourable member for giving way. At not one time has he told the House he will pay for this £38 billion price tag. In one way, that will increase national debt, and it will be future generations who will have to pay for it, who will have to have a much higher pensionable age. How will he answer that question in terms of fairness?
I want to know my national insurance matters.
That was pathetic. There will come a time when not only the SNP, but the backbenchers of the government party who have pledged to support the WASPI women, and also the general public, will question the role of this place if it is not to listen and respect the will of the people. With internal dissent growing in the Tories over ESA cuts and the reduction of the work allowance, the cracks are beginning to appear. Maybe now is the time for them to change tactics and start listening to the Conservatives that they claim to represent. Can I say to those that have put the names of the amendments A and B that I understand their motivation, but I would ask them to support the SNP today. The Scottish National Party have commissioned the research to challenge the UK Government's figures. While there are a number of options available to the Government, we believe that option 2 can give immediate relief to those women next to face the delay in this Parliament, and the Government must act now. Our report is a stepping stone that should be adopted to help end this. I am not, Mr. Speaker, with your forbearance, I am aware that I've been on my feet for quite some time. I do want to get to my concluding remarks. I've been generous. I have been generous in allowing others to come in. I will not be taking any further interventions so I can finish and allow other people to speak. Our report is a stepping stone that should be adopted to help end this injustice. We hope that this report will be welcomed by the UK Government and now at last act to end the inequality. The SNP Westminster Parliamentary Report detailed modelling by Landman Economics of the impact of different options for compensating women affected by the 2011 Act. One option was to return to the timetable in the 1995 Act, whereby women's state pension age would rise from 63 in March 2016 to 65 in April 2020. The report estimated that reverting back to the 1995 Act for Women would cost £7.9 billion between 2016-17 and 2020-21. The Government estimated that the accelerated SPA in the Pensions Act 2011 saved around £30 billion from both women and men from 2016-17 to 2025-26. However, this is simply not the case. The £8 billion cost is affordable, given the surplus in the National Insurance Fund that rightfully should be used to end this injustice. The fund is in surplus and is projected to be at a £30 billion surplus at the end of 2017-18, according to the Government's own actuary department. It's time the Government paid out. After all, the WASPI women paid in and helped create this surplus. They should now be given their due. The Minister said that it's simply too expensive and that public spending is complicated. We simply will not be fobbed off. The report was carried out by a credible and sound model that has been used previously by independent economists. Again, the matter returns to priorities. Too expensive in comparison to what other expenses. The Tories have a choice here. That is not a necessity. While we're trying to get the Government to act, others elsewhere are doing just that. Measures brought in by the Polish Government on the 16th of November to reverse the increase in pensionable age from the previous planned state pensionable age of 67 to 60 for women and 65 for men as of October 2017. The Polish Prime Minister claimed that there was enough state funds for earlier pensions coming for more efficient tax collection. Well. Of course, the parallel here is that we know there is a surplus in the National Insurance Fund. We can put in place the mitigation. If Poland can do it, what about a rich country like the United Kingdom? It is all about choices. We published in our report the scale of increase in pensionable age in each European country. There are only, Mr. Speaker, 2 countries which are seeing a rapid increase of pensionable age for women in line with the UK, that of Italy and Greece. Is there anyone in the Government benches prepared to defend the increase in women's pensionable age of 3 months per month? We have given the government an option, and unlike their Trident nuclear weapons commitment, it is costed. I will say to this government, we are not going away. More importantly, the WASPI women are not going away. In conclusion, Mr Speaker, this is our National Day in Scotland. And with deference to Rabbie Burns, if he will forgive me, if I can perhaps adapt one of his better-known pieces of work. Women wi hae wi WASPI bled, women when WASPI has oft times led. Welcome to your gory bed, or to victory. Now's the day and now's the hour. See the front of battle lower. See approach proud Teresa's power. Chains and slavery. Wha will be a traitor knave? Wha can fill a coward's grave? Wha say bases be a slave? Let her turn them free. Wha for pensions rightly earned? Freedom's sword will strongly draw. WASPI stand or WASPI fall? Let them follow me. By oppression's woes and pains, by your daughters in servile chains, we will drain our dearest veins, but they shall be free. Lay the proud usurpers low, tyrants fall in every foe, liberties in every bow. Let us do or die. Justice for the WASPI women. Mr Speaker, the Tory government have ducked their responsibility for the WASPI women for too long. It is time to face up to the reality. Pensions are not a privilege. They are the contract, and the UK government has broken it.
Order.